welcome back to another monthly reading recap video. Today I'm going to be going through all the books that I read during the month of June, and brace yourselves, it is a lot more than normal. So here we have all the books that I read in June. I read 11 books in June, so that was really good for my yearly goal of getting 100 books done. I've really caught up now. I think I'm up to 56 books out of 100 for the year, and we're halfway through the year, so that's great. So the first book I read is part of a series. It's a 5-book series. And that is Ruthless Villains by Mariam Blackwood. This was good. It was okay. I really liked, like, it's full enemies to lovers sort of plot. Like, they are actual villains, enemies, hate each other the whole book. So that was really interesting. I enjoyed the first book. I thought the writing style was a bit basic, but I mean, it's very much a smutty book, like you're reading it for the romance, and it gave what I needed it to give, and I really liked this book. So this one was a 4 out of 5. Next up was the sequel, which is Wicked Villains. This one was a little bit more of a struggle to get through. I just felt like it was very repetitive and there wasn't really much character development or character growth. Still very much enemies, and I kind of get a little bit bored of that trope if it doesn't turn into lovers after a while, and I just felt like their communication was terrible and I just got a little bit exhausting reading it. So this was a bit of a letdown, so this was 3 stars for me. Thirdly was the third book in the Ruthless Villain series, which is Heartless Villains. This is where I kind of gave up. So this is a 5-book series. I called it quits after book 3. Like, this is like not a big book. This took me days to finish because it was so boring. Like, there was literally no character development at all. It's just not wanting what I'm wanting from a romance book at all. So I made the decision to just not finish the series because I have no real interest in these characters or the plot. I don't really care what happens, to be honest. So this was book 3 out of 5. I will no longer be finishing the series. And I gave this one a 2 out of 5. Next up is Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey. This is his autobiography. This was a 5-star read for me. I mean, I already love Matthew McConaughey as an actor, and I already knew that he was really into the personal development world, really spiritual as well, like really down to earth, and had a lot of wisdom to share. So I did a combination of reading the hard copy while also listening to the audiobook. I really highly recommend listening to the audiobook as well, because he narrates it and he's just so good at telling a story. I was so entertained. I just found myself gravitating to wanting to listen to it, and then having the hard copy is really good as well. So obviously have all of the pictures and photos of him throughout his life. This is a really fun read. I really enjoyed this, so this was 5 stars. Next up is a series called A Kingdom of Stars and Shadows by Holly Renee. I believe that's how you pronounce her last name. And this was fun. This is very much, again, the writing style is a little bit basic. It's still fantasy, very much like the romance is the key part of the plot here. It's very much romance with everything else going on rather than a massive plot with romance as a subplot. I really quite liked the main male character and the main female character. I thought they were great, and it was quite slow burn, which I also quite enjoy for my romance. So I rated this one a 4 out of 5 stars. I quite enjoyed the first book of this. Second book in this series is A Kingdom of Blood and Betrayal. Don't get me wrong, I still enjoyed this. This was fun. It wasn't where I was expecting the plot to go, and I got a little bit bored of the sex scenes after a while. Like, too many sex scenes, it's just a bit like, okay, let's get on with the plot a bit. But I mean, it was still a fun read, so I rated this one a 4 out of 5 as well. The final book in this trilogy is A Kingdom of Venom and Vows, and I was really disappointed with this. The final battle literally took place over a single chapter. Like, it was not fleshed out at all. One chapter to do the entire main surmise of the plot. And I'm not kidding, there were 4 chapters of sex scenes back to back where the entire chapter was just sex. There was 4 of them back to back. I'm like, okay, I like a good sex scene in my books as much as anyone else does, but can we have some plot now, please? Like, it was just really, really repetitive. And I get that a lot of people are reading this for the smut, but I also need plot, and I just was really not mentally stimulated, and I was just a little bit underwhelmed with what she did with the plot at the end. So this one was a 3 out of 5 for me. Next up is a trilogy that is definitely up there in some of my favorite trilogies I've ever read. So I was a little bit exhausted after reading so many romance-based books and books with sex scenes, because I can get a bit bored after a while. Like, give me some plot. So this trilogy has got no romance, no sex scenes, no romance at all, like at all in the entire series. So this is the Poppy War series by R.F. Kuang, and this book, fantastic, 5 out of 5 stars. I was so hooked. This is a very hard read. It is very, very high fantasy. Again, there's no romance, but it's also very dark topics. There's a lot of trigger warnings before you read this book. One of the chapters in particular, everyone will know the chapter if you've read this book. I was literally just in shock because it's based on true events. Like, it's fantasy, but it's been based off of true events in our history, and it was just so confronting and so moving, and I was so emotional reading it. I actually had to put the book down and not read for the rest of the day after reading that chapter because of how horrified I was that this was actually based on something that happened in real life. But I love this book. I thought the characters were all very interesting and very fleshed out. The plot was fantastic. And the main female character, she's not someone that you instantly gravitate to or like. She has flaws, she has problems, and she does things and makes decisions that make you really question her as a female main character, which I thoroughly enjoy because I don't want it all to be so monotone. I want there to be depth and different opinions about my main characters. So this was a 5 out of 5 star read for me. The second book in the Poppy War trilogy is The Dragon Republic, and this is probably my favorite book in the trilogy. Out of all three, this is probably my favorite one. I love Nedja. He is one of the main male characters. I love him as a character. He is so flawed as a character, which makes him so interesting to read about and to have chapters from his perspective. This trilogy is in third person as well, which I also prefer because then you get other people's point of views. Yeah, this book was fantastic. 5 out of 5. The final book in the Poppy War trilogy is The Burning God, and another 5 out of 5. So all three of these books in this trilogy were 5 out of 5 for me. They were just fantastic. So well written, so intelligent and so intellectual, but so captivatingly moving as well in terms of the main characters and the emotions and the way that you feel about them. And also so frustrating because what you want to happen doesn't necessarily happen, because in a lot of fantasy in particular, it's really happy endings and you feel this sense of, you know, relief and joy and contentment when you read them. This trilogy, you are not going to get that. Like, that's why I loved it so much, is because the ending I was not expecting, and I was left feeling empty at the end, like, because it wasn't what I wanted to happen, and it wasn't necessarily happy for everyone involved. Like, it's just a fantastic trilogy, and I could not recommend it enough. So 5 out of 5 for all three of these books in this trilogy. The final book that I read in June was A Court of the Vampire Queen by Kate Robert. I knew going into this that this is a smut book. This is a book with sex scenes and a little bit of plot. But that was okay, because after reading the Poppy War trilogy, I definitely kind of needed a little mental break. So I just wanted something that was going to be really easy to read, something that was just fun and lighthearted, that wasn't too serious, because the Poppy War was quite emotionally and mentally draining, reading that over the course of a week. So this was perfect. This was what I wanted after reading a trilogy that intense. This is great because the main female character, she has 3 male lovers. All 3 of these vampires, they're all bonded, all 4 of them. So they're like a foursome. They all date her, and they're bi as well. So they all have sex with each other. So the men have sex with the other men, and she has sex with all of them individually as a group. There's foursome scenes. Like, if you want a really smutty, sex scene oriented book, this is a great book, especially as a woman who is bi as well. Like, I'm bisexual as well. So it was really fun, like, reading the sex scenes and the foursomes about this, where everyone's doing things to everyone, because everyone's bisexual. So it was just great. It was really fun. A little bit of plot. I mean, the plot wasn't really that flushed out, and I knew it wasn't going to be, because that wasn't what my expectations were going to be for this book. I knew this was going to be a book with fantastic sex scenes, and it didn't disappoint. I gave it a 4 out of 5. So that's all the books that I read during the month of June. Some fantastic ones, some not so great ones. But yeah, so getting into more of the high fantasy for the month of July, because I'm a little bit exhausted with smut and the romance at the moment. So getting back into the high fantasy books for the month of July. But that is my June reading recap for you guys.